Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today with Cal Jungwirth, who is director of placement or permanent placement services with Robert Half. Thanks, Cal, for joining us today.
Mario, good to see you again.
Now I forgot pronunciation of your last name, Cal.
It's actually Jungwirth.
Jungwirth. I thought so. As soon as I said that, I thought, wait a second, it should be
All
Young.
good. All good.
Let's talk about, Cal, about hiring intentions going forward here with so the small business community. What are you guys hearing out there about small business intentions to hire more staff?
Yeah, October is Small Business Month here in Canada, so we wanted to dig in and see what small businesses are feeling, what they're planning to do. And, I think there's some underlining really good news. Number one, approximately 60% of small businesses are, in fact, looking to add talent to their team before the end of the year. So I think that's a real good positive sign. And when we dig into those numbers, about just over 50% of those organizations that are hiring at headcount are hiring because the businesses are growing. Things are relatively positive, relatively strong, so they need talent to add to their team. So that's really encouraging. But then what we did find, and last number that I'll throw at you, is about 90% of those organizations that are hiring are finding it to be a real challenge to hire. And I'm sure that'll be something you want to dig into a little bit.
Yeah, and it's something I guess that has been out there for quite some time now, a couple of years now. We've heard about labor shortages, we've heard about challenges in hiring. What are the dynamics in place that have, I guess, led to this situation where there are challenges to hire people?
Yeah, I think two things. Number one, it's a story of demographics. The Canadian population is getting older. A lot of the baby boomers are now exiting the workforce. So we're seeing thousands, literally thousands of individuals, Canadians every month, leave the workforce, and then that leaves the workforce a little bit shorthanded.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've got younger people coming into the workforce every day. We've got newcomers to Canada. So there is a supplement to the overall working population. But at the end of the day, it needs to be the right people for the right positions. And that's where there's a little bit of a maybe the match isn't quite perfect, and we're getting there. So that's one driving force why it's been a bit of a job seekers market for the last couple of years. And then the other piece is just, relatively speaking, the economy has been in pretty good shape. It really depends exactly where you're located in the country. But some of the provinces are doing well, so they're drawing talent. So that's led this to be a little bit of a what we call a candidate short market. But as we've moved into the end of the year, we are seeing things settle down a little bit where maybe the jobs and the people are starting to match a little bit more, and it's a little bit more of an equal playing field.
So, are there particular industries, Cal, that you're noticing that are more willing or are looking more so now at hiring than other industries?
In the spaces that we're in, I'm actually happy to say it's tough to pinpoint one or two really hot industries that are leading the way. There's a lot of diversity out there, and whether we're talking to manufacturing companies, energy companies, hospitality, at the end of the day, the message has been the same throughout the year, in that everybody is looking for talent, and just about everybody's having a real tough time finding talent. So again, I think that's a little bit of a good news story in that it's not just one or two industries dominating and leading the pack.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that we've noticed in the workforce here since the pandemic began, really, is the remote work issue out there. Well, not an issue, but just the environment that's there. And now we're seeing more and more of a hybrid model where some days you're at homes or elsewhere, or some days you're at work. Does that model work as well for small businesses, or is it more of a model that's for bigger companies?
No, you know what? I'd say small businesses may be handling that particular topic even a little bit better than some larger organizations. And that's just because when you're maybe a small to medium sized organization, you may have a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you allow your teams to do what they do. It's at the end of the day, we're learning that it's not an easy topic for anyone.
Yeah.
Organizations are trying to figure out that, number one, if they are okay with a hybrid environment, what does that mean to them? Is that 2 days in the office? Is that 3 days in the office? If it is, let's say 3 days in the office, which 3 days? Does the entire team come in on the same 3 days? Is there flexibility there? So the deeper we've gone into that topic, it's almost like a little bit more murkier the topic becomes. So I think small organizations, like large organizations, are learning what works for them specifically, because there's still a lot of attraction from the job seekers perspective. Folks are telling us, and I think we hear it and see it all the time, that people want flexibility in how they're allowed to work. And again, flexibility means different things to everyone. So it just needs to be an open dialogue.
Okay. So what do companies need, in this environment, looking for people, hard time finding people? What do they need to do to set themselves apart to attract the people?
Well, I think number one, it always comes down to money in some shape or form. So compensation has been a hot topic. And again, we can't look at any media, read it, see it, listen to it without hearing the topic of inflation.
Yeah.
So, but that's, I think, a two-sided coin, right? There's inflation from the individual perspective. The cost of living has gone up. So obviously, if our expenses have gone up, our salary becomes that much more important. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's why this topic is not going away. So organizations need to make sure that they're competitive, and that's not only for attraction purposes, but that's for retention purposes as well. I've always said the best talent attraction policy is having a good retention policy. Don't
Yeah.
need to hire in the first place, right? So, but where I was going with that is costs are tough for organizations as well.
Yeah.
Inflation hits small businesses. And so there's that balancing act between being able to keep your people satisfied, but obviously running a strong, healthy business. And that's not an easy balancing act.
What's interesting, when we talk about retention too, companies that retain employees, are they also more attractive to people from the outside to come in, because they see employees that have been there 10, 15, 20 years, as opposed to a constant turnover?
Absolutely. It's a big red flag if you interview with an organization for a specific role, and let's say there's been 3 people in that position over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You start to ask yourself why. And why should I join this team? Whereas if you're taking, maybe you're interviewing at a role where someone's been promoted after being with the organization for a number of years, that feels better, right? So
Yeah.
absolutely, retention is key for attraction purposes as well, as you note.
All right, super. Well, thanks, Cal, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back, Mario.
All right, that was Cal Jungwirth, who is Director of Permanent Placement Services for Robert Half. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today. Thanks for joining us.